A big part of the modern zeitgeist is to retroactively graft on different meanings to people's work based on looking at it through a modern lens, or discovering something about someone, or allegedly discovering something about someone. Basically, people's understanding of an artist or individual changes as well as the times. So we kind of put a new moral judgment onto something, or an assumption, or a reinterpretation of the intention of what they were trying to say at the time. Woody Allen, of course, is one of the biggest ones in which this has been the case lately. How people perceived his work pre-scandal and how people perceive his work post-scandal, and then post-revival of the scandal, especially the post-revival of the scandal, has completely changed the way his work has been appreciated. But the ways in which it was appreciated pre-scandal are still applicable to the works themselves. Basically what it comes down to is people are very selective about what they think he's confessing and what they think he likes and approves of and dislikes and approves of. This is going to happen when your on-screen persona and your off-screen personality kind of merge. Sometimes, yes, he is saying things that he believes in his movies, of course. And then sometimes he's knowingly being ridiculous because he is a comedian after all. And sometimes he knows he's the problem, and sometimes he knows someone else is the problem, and sometimes it's a combination of the two, and sometimes people kill people in his movies, you know. As far as, like, people thinking that Manhattan is, like, this creepy movie, first of all, it's so not. I mean, it's one of the most sophisticated, thoughtful movies. And I know there's going to be those people that go, well, he dressed it up nicely. That's what he's doing. So that you don't think of it that way. Well, that doesn't track either, because all his films are, all his films deal with complicated topics and themes, and sometimes he handles them in deep ways, and sometimes he handles them in silly ways, and sometimes there's an irony to it, and sometimes there's an existentialism to it, and sometimes there's a poetry to it, and to use someone's techniques against them because you think they're covertly trying to tell you something or convince you of something about themselves, or make them think something's okay. That's like saying that Crimes and Misdemeanors is him trying to convince us that murder is fine, which is totally not the point of that movie. The point of that movie very much revolves around whether or not you can live with having committed a murder if you don't get caught. Now, I know there's going to be people that go, there you go, that shows you the kind of person he is. He literally makes movies about doing something terrible and then being racked with guilt about that. Well, in 1989, when Crimes and Misdemeanors came out, he had never been accused of anything. So he was already interested in that. And he's been interested in those topics from the get-go, from a philosophical place. And he likes Hitchcock, and he likes literature, and like all that stuff, very well known. At a certain time, we all kind of knew this, that this is where he was coming from. And all that stuff got buried under the scandal. And now people are prone to misinterpret everything he does, or anything that indicates seedy behavior on his end. If you're coming at it from the perspective that he's okay with these things, then of course you're going to miss the sort of point of the joke. But it's very common nowadays to basically misunderstand intent and context, especially around comedy, that people think that someone is actually secretly confessing something now, all because of the content of the joke and then the alleged behavior of said person. It's very weird to me. Like, for instance, there's a joke in Bananas when Woody's trying to buy, like, a dirty magazine.
There's a copy of Orgasm.
Just put him in a bag, will you?
What? Orgasm. This man wants to buy a copy. How much is it?
Doing a sociological study on perversion. I'm up to advanced child molesting.
And people, now when people watch it, they go, whoa, that joke hasn't aged well. And, well, sure, when you make a joke like that and then later get accused of that, obviously that doesn't look good. But the idea, but this idea that he was secretly confessing something is just so silly, because especially when the very nature of the joke itself is predicated on saying something outrageous. Right, I remember it's about 20 years ago when I got into him when I was a teenager, and I just knew there was something about him that I remember, because I was like 6 when the whole scandal erupted, and my parents weren't really into him, so I didn't have this direct understanding. I had a kind of vague understanding, like a lot of people have, just a vague understanding about him. And it was something with him. I knew he was still beloved, but also like people had an issue with him. I didn't really know what was going on, something to do with his daughter or something, I don't know. Didn't really pay any mind. So with no reason to read into anything he was showing me on that level, like people are trying to do now, I didn't perceive that joke that way. To me, it was very clear. I laughed because he said something ridiculous. That was the whole point of that. In Love and Death, Diane Keaton goes to talk to the wisest man in the land, and he tells her the secret of happiness.
I have lived many years, and after many trials and tribulations, I have come to the conclusion that the best thing is...
Yes?
blonde 12-year-old girls.
Father.
2 of them whenever possible.
Father, I counted on you.
I forgive you.
I've heard podcasts where people talk about that line as though, ooh, this is very revealing about Woody. When the context of that joke is that she came to him to get advice, and this is the advice he gave her. And throughout the whole movie, it's made painfully clear that this character has gone nuts. So that's him just saying crazy things. And she's like bothered that that's what he said very clearly. It's very, I mean, how can you read anything else out of that? That's the whole point of that. That's not the actual answer to the question that she asks. Whether or not this is something Woody actually believes or agrees with is irrelevant to the joke, first of all. There's no indication in the scene to suggest that. And also, the character who's saying it should matter more than the person who wrote it, right? That should be how this is looked at.
Thank you, your grubbiness.
Another example would be, there's a joke at Annie Hall where he says,
all right, then what are you saying now? That everybody on the Warren Commission is in on this conspiracy, right?
Well, why not?
Yeah, Earl Warren,
Hey, honey, I don't know Earl Warren.
Lyndon Johnson.
Lyndon Johnson is a politician. You know the ethics those guys have? It's like a notch underneath child molester.
Again, okay, he references child molesting, but this idea that it's because he's for it doesn't track. It doesn't make any sense. It's actually, he's literally saying it's about as bad as you can be, and the joke is that politicians are even worse, which is just a joke on politicians. He's using the lowest bar he can think of and then putting politicians under it, right? So that tells you his opinion of that concept. In Hannah and Her Sisters, there's the joke where he's a TV writer, and they have a problem with the joke he wrote.
Your standards It's and mine, practices? yes. Okay. Why all of a sudden is the sketch dirty?
Child molestation is a touchy subject with the affiliates.
Read the papers. Half the country's doing
Yes,
it.
but you name names.
We don't name names. We say the post.
We always
That
say
sketch cannot go on the air.
Right? So the whole point of this joke is it's a joke against Catholics, because that scandal, infamous Catholic molestation scandal, was really taking hold around the time that movie was made, and it's a joke about that, you know, like a joke from the headlines kind of idea, which is what a TV writer does a lot. I remember watching this on local Detroit television a few years ago, and I got so mad because they literally cut out the we say the Pope.
Why all of a sudden is the sketch dirty?
Child molestation is a touchy subject with the affiliates.
Read the papers. Half the country's doing
Yes,
it.
So that really, really infuriated me. I'm like, you're cutting a line that ruins the joke and implies to the viewer that this guy is okay with that concept in order to protect an organization that has countless allegations against them. I thought it was a very irresponsible edit on television. In Stardust Memories, there's a scene when the Woody character he comes back from a dinner and his girlfriend or whatever is like all mad at him.
Come on, Dory.
Don't lie to me. You're attracted to her.
I'm not attracted to her. What are you talking about?
Staring at her all through dinner,
Oh,
giving
what's
each other looks.
Oh, stop it. She's
But don't you
14
think I
years.
care?
She's not even 14. She's 13 and a
I care. I
half.
used to play those games with my father, so I know I've been through all that.
What kind of games? You think I'm flirting with your kid
Well, you can't
cousin?
take your eyes off her.
Thought you were sitting opposite me.
You smile at her.
Yes, I smile at her. I'm a friendly person. What do you want? She's a kid. This is stupid. I don't want to have this
Don't
conversation.
tell me it's stupid. I used to do that with my father across the table, all those private jokes. I know.
Do what? What private jokes? We were talking about movies. She likes funny movies, so we were discussing it. Hey, what's the matter with you? Dory, what's the matter with you? What's your...
Just a scene in and of itself. You didn't see the dinner. You don't even know the person they're referring to necessarily. You just see them talking about it in the aftermath. And obviously, that's fodder for those who think, he's trying to tell us something about him or whatever. Oh, look, he flirts with 14-year-olds. The whole scene is him going, what are you talking about? I was just being nice. So, again, the whole scene is based on this idea that that's ridiculous. Why would I be flirting with someone who's 14 or even younger than 14? And the lady, doesn't believe him. Now, for some reason, nowadays, people would take the lady's side in this scene as though Woody is trying to tell us through this other character that what he's up to, his seediness that he's up to of some kind. When really in the context of Stardust Memories, it's a whole movie about a guy who, no matter what he does, people have criticisms of it. They have opinions about it. He can't do anything without somebody having their 2 cents on something. He's misinterpreted. He's misunderstood at all times. He's basically caught in a whirlwind of misunderstanding. In that context, that scene makes perfect sense and is not any sort of revelation about who he is. People talk about Manhattan being a creepy movie as though it's some sort of William Lustig, raw, low-budget, grainy movie about an older man preying on younger women, and he's trying to convince us it's okay or something. When it's this completely sophisticated movie that examines the awkward, sometimes humorous, and flawed aspects of this relationship. It's a very thoughtful movie. It's very complicated, and it's not like older men have never dated 17-year-olds before. This is a thing that's happened. Wouldn't you rather see the version where this person is kind of insecure about it? They're not sure what to think about it, and they feel kind of silly, and it's also wrapped in the movie, very clearly stated. It's very much, his character is kind of going through a bit of a midlife crisis to a degree. It's an old cliche, but it's, this is not uncommon. The Diane Keaton character points out.
Why? I got a divorce because my ex-wife left me for another woman. Okay?
Really?
Mm-hmm.
God, that must have been really demoralizing.
I don't know. I thought I took it rather well under the circumstances.
Ooh-wee.
I tried to run them both over with a car.
I can imagine. I mean, that's incredible sexual humiliation. It's enough to turn you off of women, and I think it accounts for the little girl.
Hey, the little girl is fine. Jesus, what's with the little girl?
Oh, sure, I understand. Believe me. 16 years old, no possible threat at all.
Uh-huh. She's 17. She's going to be 8. Sometimes you have a losing personality, Mary.
To treat that movie as though it's inherently evil just because it's a 42-year-old going out with a 17-year-old. He also ends up with a 30-something-year-old at some point in the movie. You know what I mean? It's like this idea that that's what it's about. The middle-age and teenage relationship feels like it's at the center of the movie because it ends with the airport scene, but that's literally reflects more on the Woody Allen character in the movie and how much trouble he's having getting to the next stage in his life because of how bitter he is, and he's worried that this one sort of beacon of purity is going to be ruined. There's something to be said about all of that. You can examine it however you want to. You can criticize it or praise it or whatever, but this idea that it's inherently wrong or inherently bad. If you go back and look at every review in the late 70s, nobody pointed out that this was awkward. You know why? Because the movie does it for you. The movie points out how awkward it is. And besides, Manhattan was made during the new Hollywood era, which was a time in American cinema when you could explore adult themes. Like, the primary target for movies during this time were the adults in the audience, which has changed dramatically over the years. And now, because of that, we retroactively like to condemn movies because of how unsophisticated we've become in terms of understanding the content.
6 months isn't so long. Everybody gets corrupted. You have to have a little faith in people.